Quick quiz. If I asked you right now what triggers depression, you'd probably whisper serotonin, right? That tidy chemical imbalance tale has dominated headlines for decades. Yet, the World Health Organization quietly points out that only about one-third of depression risk can be pinned on biology alone. So what's hiding inside the other two-thirds, and why don't we talk about it? Stick around because the real story is messier, smarter, and way more useful than you think. Let's give credit where it's due. Back in the 80s, researchers noticed many depressed patients had low serotonin metabolites in their spinal fluid. Drug companies ran with that data, the media simplified it, and depression became a chemical imbalance in the public mind. The pitch was catchy, but it left everyone picturing the brain like a car that's simply low on brake fluid. Top it up and you're fine. Neuroscience now says reality is closer to a citywide traffic jam. Neurotransmitters matter, sure. But so do road closures, inflammation, broken stoplights, hormones, outdated maps, genes, and even reckless drivers' life stress. Serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine are still players, yet tweaking just one rarely clears the gridlock. So yes, pills can help, but they usually shift the odds rather than flip a magic switch. If we stop at chemistry, we miss the rest of the pileup and keep people stuck in self-blame when pills don't fully work. Depression often runs in families. Large twin studies peg heritability at roughly 40 to 50%. But here is the nuance. Having the gene doesn't sentence you to misery. Think of genes like dimmer switches. Early adversity, chronic stress, or even exercise can nudge that switch up or down. Take one star gene, SLC6A4, which makes the serotonin transporter. A shorter version of this gene bumps up depression risk, but mainly when childhood trauma enters the picture. No trauma, no extra risk, same DNA, radically different outcome. Beyond single genes, researchers now study polygenic scores, hundreds of tiny genetic nudges that together raise susceptibility. Even then, environment must amplify the signal. Inflammation genes, circadian genes, and stress hormone genes all interact. The takeaway here is empowerment, not fatalism. If high genetic risk meant destiny, then therapy, sleep hygiene, and social support wouldn't cut symptoms so consistently, yet they absolutely do. Your biology whispers tendencies, not verdicts. Adverse childhood experiences, things like neglect, abuse, or household dysfunction sculpt the stress response for decades. Kids who live through 4 or more ACEs are about 3 times likelier to develop major depressive disorder later. The mechanism? Toxic stress floods the brain with cortisol, shrinking the hippocampus and enlarging the fear center amygdala. Over time, this wires the mind for threat, making neutral events feel like setbacks, and setbacks like catastrophes. Cognitive patterns harden alongside neural ones. A child who learns "my feelings don't matter" might slide into people-pleasing perfectionism or its opposite, defensive isolation. Both styles amplify life stress and erode supportive relationships, feeding depression in a self-fulfilling loop. Therapy, luckily, can rewind some of this. Meta-analyses show cognitive behavioral therapy thickens prefrontal areas responsible for emotional braking, while trauma-focused approaches shrink an overactive amygdala. Bottom line, early wounds aren't a life sentence, but they demand deliberate healing because they echo in every later domain: biological, psychological, and social. Even without childhood trauma, chronic adult stress can ignite depression. Think work overload, caregiving without respite, or financial insecurity. These keep the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis buzzing, releasing cortisol that disrupts sleep, appetite, immunity, and finally mood. Brain-derived neurotrophic factor, nicknamed fertilizer for neurons, plummets under relentless stress, starving brain cells of the proteins they need to form new connections. The psychological layer matters too. Rumination is a proven gateway from stress to full depression. Replaying worst-case scenarios locks the brain in threat mode and blocks problem-solving. Behavioral models call this the stress generation effect. Negative thinkers unconsciously create more drama, reinforcing their worldview. Simple skills like scheduled worry time, journaling, and activity planning can break the loop by shifting attention outward and restoring a sense of agency. Socially, chronic stress erodes support networks. People cancel plans, friends feel rebuffed, and isolation creeps in just when connection is most protective. The fix? Microdoses of mastery and pleasure: walking 10 minutes, texting one friend, prepping a nutritious snack. These aren't Instagram-worthy victories, but they're evidence-based bricks rebuilding a sense of control. If any of this is clicking for you, tap a quick comment. Which factor surprised you most: genes, childhood stress, or the adult grind? Your story might untangle the mess for someone else, and algorithms love engagement. So smash that enter key. Humans evolved as tribal animals. Exclusion once meant death. Modern loneliness still flips ancient alarm switches, spiking pro-inflammatory cytokines linked to depression. A 2022 meta-analysis found lonely individuals show C-reactive protein levels comparable to those in smokers. Inflammation, in turn, depletes serotonin and blunts reward circuits, explaining why lonely people often say, "Nothing sounds fun anymore." Digital life promised connection but delivered curated highlight reels that make ordinary lives feel inadequate. Passive scrolling doubles as social comparison on steroids, especially for teens. Rates of major depressive episodes among U.S. adolescents rose over 60% between 2009 and 2019, a curve that mirrors smartphone adoption eerily well. The antidote is quality, not quantity of relationships. One emotionally safe confidant halves depression risk after major life events. Practical moves: join a recurring real-world group, a language class, community theater, a park cleanup. Shared purpose lubricates conversation for the socially rusty. If in-person isn't accessible, even voice or video calls beat endless texting. The richer the medium, the fuller the oxytocin release, and the stronger the protective buffer. Depression isn't just personal, it's political. Neighborhoods marked by violence, noise, and polluted air show higher rates of the illness, even after controlling for genetics. Income inequality intensifies status anxiety, eroding self-worth and amplifying shame. Meanwhile, gig economy precarity turns Fridays into "will I get laid off?" roulette, keeping workers hyper-vigilant and exhausted. Discrimination piles on another layer. Experiences of racism, homophobia, or transphobia correlate with elevated depressive symptoms, partly mediated by chronic stress and healthcare barriers. Microaggressions don't just hurt feelings. They elevate blood pressure and disrupt sleep, biological hits that accumulate into mood disorders. Policy matters more than pep talks here. Countries with robust unemployment insurance, paid parental leave, and affordable housing report lower depression prevalence, independent of genetics. So while self-care is valuable, voting for mental health-friendly legislation and supporting inclusive workplaces are systemic interventions that protect thousands at once. Personal tip: link your advocacy to your profession. Teachers can push for anti-bullying programs. Coders can volunteer with digital mental health nonprofits. Baristas can offer free warm drinks to homeless patrons during cold snaps. Small structural tweaks, multiplied by community, rival antidepressants in population-level data. Autoimmune illnesses, chronic pain, and even long COVID fan the flames of depression. The shared pathway: inflammation. Cytokines like interleukin-6 punch through the blood-brain barrier, altering neurotransmitter metabolism and slamming the brakes on neuroplasticity. Suddenly, the brain's reward circuitry fires sluggishly, anhedonia sets in, and fatigue feels bone-deep. Hormones ride shotgun. Thyroid dysfunction masquerades as depression so frequently that guidelines recommend a TSH test before starting antidepressants. Postpartum estrogen plummets can trigger peripartum mood episodes, while low testosterone in men often maps onto irritable despair rather than classic sadness. Diabetes likewise doubles depression odds. Blood sugar swings mimic panic, and microvascular damage starves neurons of oxygen. The good news: treating the underlying physical illness often lifts mood. Anti-inflammatory diets, moderate exercise, and certain antidepressants with anti-inflammatory properties. Think sertraline, chip away at both fronts. If you're caught in the mind-body ping-pong, insist on integrated care, a psychiatrist who consults your endocrinologist, or a pain clinic that screens for mood. Healing the body calms the mind, and calming the mind improves adherence to medical regimens, a virtuous cycle replacing the vicious one. Curious for deeper dives on inflammation hacks or therapy types? Hit subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our upcoming breakdown. And if someone you know feels stuck, forward this video. It might just flip their whole perspective. So what actually causes depression? It's not a single gremlin, but a committee. Genes that sensitize, childhood experiences that wire, adult stressors that ignite, Social networks that fray and bodies that inflame. The interaction is personal. The antidote must be too. Medication can quiet neural alarms, therapy can rewire thought loops, lifestyle changes can cool inflammation, and community action can loosen structural chokeholds. Most people thrive on a blend, not a silver bullet. Understanding the full ecosystem ends shame. If your antidepressant helped only halfway, that doesn't mean you failed. It probably means another pillar like loneliness or thyroid dysfunction still needs support. Start anywhere small. A 10-minute walk, a therapy consult, a text to an old friend, or a vote for better mental health funding. Tiny gains compound. Recovery rarely feels cinematic, more like a dull fog lifting until one morning coffee tastes like coffee again. If you're in crisis, reach out. Hotlines are in the description, along with links to global resources. Or simply tell your primary care doctor. Science keeps evolving, but the bottom line stays. Depression is real, treatable, and nobody deserves to fight it alone. Thanks for watching. Take gentle care of your brain, and I'll catch you in the next video.